Dime qué tú quieres, papi. ¿Quieres que lo mueva para ti? Mueve, mueve. ¿Te gusta cuando me muevo así? Así.
Thank you, God, for this day we have lived, everything in our life, our health, our family, the guidance you have given us, allow us guidance to the path of righteousness. Amen.
Really, I'ma get that bitch. Revenge is a dish best served cold. She took my son, now my soul is cold. He took my daddy, now my soul is old. Yeah. Woke up.
Yeah, man.
That's hot shit right there, man.
So what we gonna do? We gonna dub?
King Chaka ENT. Y'all can check out the music on Spotify, Apple, and other services.
Looks like we got us another hit. Yep.
It's not just talent.
That's what you ought to do.
You gotta know what the fuck you doing.
Shawty come and jump in my ride.
That's what you ought to do.
When the sun is starting to shine. You feel like calling you? I think I wanna give you some time. You better follow through. Stop playing shine, show me your grind. That's what you ought to do.
I will hit any chick who likes sodomy, sex on stilts, while a big top watching me. I eat fish like a culinary apology. I leave you like an open heart. Carnegie, just can't quit. Feel like it's a part of me. My wrist on lit. Time to join the party. We check the list quick. Who got the bottle? See a poker face chip. I know she gonna swallow me, bite my lip. While I'm watching people watching me, that's not it. Won't you climb right on top of me? My mind's so sick. It's a function of my bodily. My mind's so sick. It's a function of my bodily. I feel it, you feel it. She say I'm feeling it inside of me. I dig it, you dig it. We digging all over your body. Come get it, I'm with it. I'm gon' get it on the bottom. Come get it, I'm with it. I'm gon' get it on the bottom.
Shawty come and jump on my ride. That's what you ought to do. When the sun is starting to shine. You feel like calling you? I think I wanna give you some time. You better follow through. Stop playing sign, show me your grind. That's what you ought to do.
I done heard, I done thought, now I wonder and wanna see. Said you really are the king of the jungle, but can it be? Now you really gotta work and be holding the head of me. Cause if you don't know how to stroke, it could cause a catastrophe. I'm a soldier, so I seek and destroy you so naturally. Put some scratches on your back and then ask what the matter be. Demonstrations why the dudes and the women be after me. Leaving weak and desperate, crying to see me on bad knees. They saying where she go? Daylight, flashlight, put me on extra glow. I tried to tell you though, platinum sunshine's about to blow.
Shawty come and jump in my ride. That's what you ought to do. The platinum sun is starting to shine. You feel like calling you? I think I wanna give you some time. You better follow through. Stop playing shine, show me your grind. That's what you ought to do. Shawty come and jump in my ride. That's what you ought to do. Platinum sun is starting to shine. You feel like calling you? I think I wanna give you some time. You better follow through. Stop playing shine, show me your grind. That's what you ought to do.
We want it, so come on, we gonna follow me. We light fires like Hanukkah, marijuana by the tree, like a harmonica. Lick it with no teeth. I like when it's lost and it getting salty like the sea. Gotta slide it off and make sure it's softening for me. Reach the top of the mountain and have you sounding out your teeth. It sound like it's coughing and talking, saying more please. I'm sticking and stabbing it. Jason for a heat, roll it on over and go get on the floor, please. Some of you born in October, long as you over 18. Going to prison for pussy, just something that I can't see. Old bitch and she ready, and she can munch a dick me. Gon' hop in my Chevy, we bout to hit the scene, man. The spot is so heavy. Hopping not seen, man. I'm fresh and so ready. Popping like team, man. I'm fresh and so ready. Popping like team.
Shawty come and jump in my ride. That's what you ought to do. The platinum sun is starting to shine. You feel like calling you? I think I wanna give you some time. You better follow through. Stop playing shine, show me your grind. That's what you ought to do. Shawty come and jump in my ride. That's what you ought to do. The platinum sun is starting to shine. You feel like calling you? I think I wanna give you some time. You better follow through. Stop playing shine, show me your grind. That's what you ought to do.
creating stanzas, creating dancers, evaluate the masters, having meetings, debating the answers to the questions that be making the handler anxious. I can't be telling nothing I ain't experienced, kinda like selling a little fake deliverance, full of malevolence, hitting up your residence, taking care of his biz without leaving evidence. Claiming heaven sent, what the fuck is this? When I take a trip to the abyss and meet the beast, I'm coming back with it. That's gold words coming from a spectacular man that froze when he found out he had a black hole where his soul's supposed to be. That's no way to see eternity. Maybe you believe, but some achieve the pearly gates and still perceive the things it will be. Busting out the dust, these rough niggas is coming up in the rush to touch the black hole. Busting out the dust, these rough niggas is coming up in the rush to touch the black hole. Busting out the dust, these rough niggas is coming up in the rush to touch the black hole. Busting out the dust, these rough niggas is coming up in the rush to touch the black hole. Hit niggas in they fucking head with a crack. You bustin', I'm bustin' back with a gat that spits venom. You sending black and when the bottom of the ninth inning smack, he bleeds. The cat's whack, send him back. Cause he ain't suffered enough, hustled enough, scuffle and cuff his hand to a cop. Nothing discussed, cutting his nuts to his cock. Something to shot, a spark out your heart when you stop jogging in the park. And you meet a nigga dog that bites bark, buds spilling on the sidewalk. Staying in the light and smart despite staying on course, of course, cause the smell of death escapes and not a corpse is rough. Top half man and I'll be damned if that bottom half horse. Hush, lost souls rushing to touch the black hole, wishing to be just gagging and bust, cause the demon face leaking buzz. Busting out the dust, these rough niggas is coming up in a rush to touch the black hole. Busting out the dust, these rough niggas is coming up in a rush to touch the black hole. Busting out the dust, these rough niggas is coming up in a rush to touch the black hole. Busting out the dust, these rough niggas is coming up in a rush to touch the black hole. What can I say? Lay in my bed at night like it's a grave. Listen to the voices in my mind misbehave. Best to be glad that my mind is away. Voices taking over days makes me afraid. I dare not go to sleep cause the voices make me weak. If I reach out for the light then I know they gonna speak through mutilated teeth. I fumigated beef. I treat my lady sweet. Why do I gotta shriek in the night? Think I'm living right? My insomnia is bringing me to ride. Lunatic lyrical things to keep me from my dreams. I wake up and I scream. Reality to me ain't really what it seems. Imagine an old sad scene when you woke up with a cold sweat scream.
Roll over on the floor, now you know what death means.
Busting out the dust, these rough niggas is coming up in a rush to touch the black hole. Busting out the dust, these rough niggas is coming up in a rush to touch the black hole. Busting out the dust, these rough niggas is coming up in a rush to touch the black hole. Busting out the dust, these rough niggas is coming up in a rush to touch the black hole. Hey, 6 niggas.
I got this.
Man, I got this.
It kinda sound like it was made just for me.
Man, I got this.
Nah, I got this.
It kinda sound like it was made just for me.
I got this. Don't try to stop this. Niggas fall down like I'm spitting out some hot shit. I'ma melt your bones down to the floor. This mini man coming through swinging fofo.
You gon' catch an elbow from my kinfolk. We don't give a damn, we gon' smoke more dope. You can't keep up with my speech. You gon' get beat down to the street.
Nigga preach when I come with the sermon. Niggas didn't learn their lesson, but now they burning. Tossing and turning, cause you can't sleep. We decreased your earnings, now your crew can't eat.
Can't eat. Talk about it was a studio leak. Maybe it's cause your lyrics so weak. I heard Mo out a little Bo Peep.
Plus your boy sucking dick on the late night creep. I got this.
Nah, I got this.
It kinda sounds like it was made just for me.
Man, I got this.
Nah, I got this.
It kinda sound like it was made just for me.
I got this.
Nah, I got this.
It kinda sound like it was made just for me.
I got this.
Nah, I got this.
It kinda sound like it was made just for me.
Hey, how y'all doing out there? How y'all feel? Remember, we want you to be an activist and don't take our word for it. Look that mess up. Thank you, God, for this day we have lived, everything in our life, our health, our family, the guidance you have given us. Allow us guidance to the path of righteousness. Amen. Amen. Ra. Um, the Fahira, what's up? If you still there, thanks for support. I try. Hopefully, I can hold people's attention and entertain them a little bit and educate them a little bit. I also want to get them a bit upset. That's why sometimes the show can be kind of hard to watch as far as related to uncomfortable, because we don't need to be comfortable. We need to get out of our comfort zone. Our comfort zone is killing us. Our comfort zone is killing the planet. We want that package overnight. We want it now. Whatever it is, we want it now. And we don't care who it hurts. We don't care if there's some little kid working in the mine to dig out the stuff that we want so we can have it overnight right now. This is the problem. So we're a global community. We're a global community. So those people on the other side of the planet who are making the stuff, that there's a connection there between us and them. And, all this stuff we buy, the consumerism, we just have to buy some more stuff. We need more stuff. It's never enough. That's what I was talking about on the show last night or whatever. Like, how much is enough? Why do we have to keep buying? Yeah. Do y'all know what planned obsolescence is? I was listening to a Lupe song some years ago, and he said that in one of the songs, and I didn't know. So, like, the thing is, that's one of the reasons why I really like to listen to Lupe, is because he knows so much stuff, and he's dropping stuff I don't know nothing about. So I didn't know what planned obsolescence was. I was like, what the hell is he talking about? And the line was like, when you find out what planned obsolescence is, and then I was like, what the hell? I had to look it up. But see, that's what I say, though. And that's what I like to do on this show. I try to give y'all stuff to go back and look up. But planned obsolescence, it's like they manufacture things in a way that it wears out, that to ensure that you have to buy it again. That's what planned obsolescence is. It's something is, when they manufactured it to be obsolete over a certain amount of time, or useless, or no longer working. But see, y'all have to understand that they didn't always make things that way. And I mentioned it before in the other show, like pots, right? Pots is a really good example. Those old pots, you have your grandma's pots. Who's ever listening right now probably got some pots or some plates or forks, even like Tupperware, cake pans and stuff. Like, bruh, these things were made. When they made those things, you're not supposed to buy it again. You should have this forever. And they did. Not only did they have it forever, but they passed it down to their kids. And we still use, this is useful stuff. We're still using it today. That cast iron skillet, still using it. Elliot says, be comfortable with being uncomfortable and move forward. Yeah, so that's the thing, though. So, sometimes I have to make us feel, I have to put us in that. I put myself in uncomfortable positions in this show, even, with some of the conversations, or even some of the perspectives or that I defend, because maybe I don't feel comfortable defending that perspective, but I still want us to expand on our perspective. So we need to hear, different views of it. Anyways, how y'all feeling tonight? We're gonna get into it. Ethnonationalism is the name of the show, and I'm not gonna get into that yet because that's the meat of the show, so I want to wait a bit on that. So, ethnonationalism, and then the subtitle is, what is ethnonationalism? you know. And when me, I'm like, all those ism words don't really mean anything, but it's a thing to think about. So it's to help you understand the world, basically. You know, understand what's happening. What are people's motivations? Like, it was a video I was watching, and the dude said, like, everybody has politics. He says even the ones that don't understand it. I mean, like, they don't understand their politics. Like, they don't really understand where they are in it because they just haven't really thought about it, but they still have it, and it's displayed in the way that they move and how they think, and some of the decisions that they make. So that's the thing, we, like I say, we all have it. We all have this bias to this, that, and the other. And then that's the thing I really try to focus on. And I swear my co-hosts and everyone is not really hearing when I talk about different cultures. But see, it's hard because I study that. So that's the reason why it's hard for me to, like, because I get impatient and trying to get people to look outside of their own culture. Like, try to imagine outside of your culture. Like, your culture is like the language you speak, kind of like the traditions that you do, everything, the way y'all do marriage, that kind of stuff. That's your culture, right? So, but everybody feels like their culture is right and the best way to go, and like their way of worshiping God is the right way, and all of this stuff. And everybody feels that way all around the world. And that's funny because the way people do it all around the world is mad different. So, but the thing is that I just try to get people to try to think outside of their culture, to try to understand that there's other ways to do things. Because if we shared more with these ideas, these cultural ideas around the world, then we can all improve our cultures. Because there's always going to be somewhere that there's improvement. There's always opportunity for improvement, even if you feel like it's the best and it's the greatest way to do it, there's always some way to make it better. Right? So wouldn't you want to be more efficient? Wouldn't you want to be more, in balance, more grounded? So why not expand your perspective on cultures and invite some of the ideas of these other cultures into your, way of thinking or whatever, making adjustments. And don't just throw it away and dismiss it, because that's how people feel. Like, those are the others. That's how they do it or whatever. Like, and that's what they do, whatever. So, but okay, that's fine or whatever. But what are some things that they do that's pretty good that you can incorporate in your life? They're like, what are you talking about? Speak American. Don't come over here talking that yin thang ching thong talk over here. Speak American. And we wallow in our ignorance a lot of times, and then and we use our culture or whatever, our language, as our defense mechanism for our ignorance. Because the world is a huge place and it's a lot of stuff going on, and ain't no way in hell you have any grasp on the whole thing. Any of us do. That's what I mean, though. So there's the opportunity for improvement. If you understand, even on the other side of the world, because we're all connected, you understand that stuff better. You're going to understand your situation and your culture, your world, everything much clearer. That's the whole point. I thought I had seen something that's kind of silly. Let's play this.
I knew this was coming up. I knew this was coming up already and stuff.
At the top of the mountain, because they took our ocean, they took all the fish out,
And sure
they
enough,
put all the tourists on our coastline, they're poisoning all our farmlands. Now they want to take our most sacred mountain. It's like eliminating us. We cannot do this alone. We need everybody to rise up. You guys gotta rise up. You institutions for Hawaiians, you Hawaiian homes, you Hawaiian Kamehameha schools, all you guys gotta get together. Bring the people together. Oha, what the hell? Bring the people together. We cannot do this alone. Time to rise up. Time to fight back before we lose everything. This is our last stand, gang.
I knew this was
This
coming up
is
already and stuff. It's
at the
okay. So
top of the mountain.
Man, when I see this clip, all I think about, I can't help but to think about the boots and legs that are in the background. And it's like these are not bad people. Like these people are they're like, I'm just doing my job, man. I just got to do my job. Like, we can't have people like blocking traffic or whatever the hell. Like this protesting stuff is you know an inconvenience to people. So I have to do my job, and I'm not a bad person. You know. So, but that's the way this whole thing works, though. It's inches at a time. But the overall result is the same. So, like, I go back to manifest destiny, right? And it's like marching from coast to coast. God given right. This land is was given to us by God. God told us this is ours. So, and we're gonna do with it how we wish. And it's like the ones that have a problem with it are, in the way. You're blocking progress. But then you have all these people along the way who are just doing their job, or they're just trying to make a living. They just want a house to live in. Just regular folks. There's nothing really inherently evil about them. But at the same time, the results of what is happening is horrible. And the thing is, we don't want to look at the big picture. We just look at the little parts. But if we step back and look at the picture overall, we'll see, what's really been happening. And that's the reason why I like to study history. And that's the whole reason why they don't teach you history in school, because proper history, because then you would have a good understanding of what's happening now and how we got here, you know? And that's the thing. So, like, this dude is, let me read the caption. It says, as Hawaiians, things are going really bad for us in Hawaii. They've taken our oceans. We have no fish left in our oceans. They've taken our shores and covered our shorelines and hotels. They've taken our farmlands and pumped them full of poison. So now we're on top of the mountain, and I don't know where else we can go. Where else can they push us? We cannot lose this battle. This is the last stand, the last straw for our most sacred spot. We will do everything that is possible, no matter what it takes. We're not going to be pushed off this cliff. So that caption is what he said in the video, because it's kind of hard to hear. But it's really touching. It touched me when I saw this. And I think about this all over the world, because Hawaii is just one example of what is happening, and what has happened. And this kind of stuff is what we really have to face and realize. And it's so crazy how, like, people protesting is an inconvenience to people. So it's like, but the horror that has bestowed these people is an inconvenience to them. Okay. So, but look, this is the problem. So it's like, well, that's not my point of view. That's not my problem even, because that's not me going through that. you know so, but again, that go back to what I was saying about us being a global community. We're all connected, and these people suffering is an example of what we're doing to the planet, what we're doing to earth, our habitat, our little bubble that we float through. How long can we keep on doing this kind of thing, and it doesn't come back to affect the people that thinking that it doesn't affect them? You know, that's what I be saying all the time. It's like, when they talk about World War II and the SS fighters or whatever, like, they were just doing their job. They were just doing their job. And then the other part of this is that, they came for the Jews, or they came for, gay people, or they came for black people, or whatever. So whichever group you identify with, or whichever group you're in, what makes you think that they're not going to come for you? How do you feel like your group is excluded? So if you let them oppress any group, who's to say you're not going to be next? You don't have no defense now. You because especially if you just let those people suffer and they saw it, then when it comes for your turn, what do you think they're going to do? How do you think a human is going to react to that? Most of those people are going to look and they're going to say, look, you didn't do nothing for us. So, hey, now it's your turn. You know, take that L and you go handle that. You go home with that. That's yours. You get what I'm saying? So, begin. That's our division that we have. That's what they do to us. And that's why we scrap it and scratch at our neighbors and we looking for them as the criminals and our enemies. And we're not looking at how the system is set up, and who the real enemies are. What's up, Deuce?
What's going on, man?
I appreciate you joining, man.
Oh yeah, shit, you welcome. Yeah, I figured I'd jump my butt on here for a little bit.
I appreciate it. Yeah,
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. What's
because it's
going
late.
on?
Usually when I come on late like this, I don't get packed.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
yeah. But this is a scheduled time. And Elliot was talking about yesterday. I don't come on in scheduled time. I come on at the scheduled time, bro. I'm pretty damn consistent. That's one of the main things I'm trying to do with this, is because even if I don't get views, I want to make sure that I'm consistent so that I can have people that come back or whatever, And I'm also building my skills of doing this thing that I'm doing.
Yeah.
What'd you think about the quote from the guy from Hawaii? Did you catch any of that?
Nah. It was that was on the screen. I just came in. Was that the guy that was looked like he was laying down on the screen there?
Yeah, they're protesting there in Hawaii. Let me see. There's no. Oh wait, there's some comments. Let's see.
That's the homeless folks, huh?
Nah. Those are like indigenous people that's having a problem with them freaking destroying the damn mountain and shit. Overall, let me read some
Oh yeah.
comments. It says, "So shameful and gross misconduct towards their neighbors." Checking out all the links. Another comment says, "What the fuck? Everyone wants Hawaii, but Hawaii is Hawaiian people's land. Have respect for Native people." Is that it? No more comments. Nobody cares about this stuff, but they should. Again, it could be you. I mean, and I
Yeah,
could go heavy on that. Go ahead.
are they talking about the land that the military leased from Hawaii back in the day that they feel like the military is destroying with all of their missile training and all that shit?
That's just one part. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if the people seen that. Did I play that video on the show? Did I play a video about that? I think I remember talking about that.
Yeah, we talked about it. I
Yeah.
think there was a video where a chick she went out there and interviewed the military and the people there.
Yeah. That's just one part of it. The guy was talking about the hotels, and we love to go to the hotels. For us, it's for a weekend or for a week or a couple weeks, and then we go back home. And I did a lot of studying about, that's why I say it's worldwide, because my studying was in the Caribbean, and it's like it's the same story there, and it's really crazy because a lot of us don't understand this stuff, like sex tourism, the stuff that related to like jobs, the market of taking care of people, service service market, service industries, and the thing is, a lot of these people are forced into that, and they have to work that because they didn't, because of the conditions there, they've taken all the other options away, and they do that on other islands, in other places where it's like they build this factory, and then it's like it becomes that's the only place you can work, and then they just hold you on whatever, because they know you don't have no choice. It's like it's related to colonialism. I'm I'm tripping, but y'all get what I'm saying. Like colonialism, like the colonizing, like exploiting these people, for your benefit, for your home, from where you're from, you know. And the thing is, a lot of this stuff has continued, and it just happens in a different way. And if you look at history, you can see how it just kind of keeps going. Anyways, I'm all emotional on that topic, so I probably need to move on.
But yeah, that shit that crazy. But they do it in a lot of little countries, towns, and stuff like that.
Yeah, man. So what's been going on, man? Got to spend some time with the family so far?
Nah, they were at school. They were at school today. I like I said, I got in yesterday. What was I got in Friday morning, and I made it here to the house. And bro, to be honest with you, I just stayed up. Like I literally stayed up and hung out. Got to see him off to school. Dropped my daughter off to school because the bus don't pick up the middle school here. So dropped her off, seen my son off, and I was up all day, bro, and then I finally crashed out by 5 o'clock. I just crashed. I couldn't take it no more. Sleep on.
Yep, all that working, man. We workaholics over here in the United States. Just on it.
Yeah.
Check this out. It says Colombia's new government reportedly considering decriminalizing cocaine. Headline. Um, man, that would. I've been saying it for the longest, but that would fix a lot of shit, bro. Like it'd be the end of the cartels and shit. Like they would have to find something else to do. Telling you, man.
The motherfucker.
Let me read this. It says Colombia's brand new president Gustavo Petro is reportedly reassessing the country's role in the international war on drugs, starting with potentially decriminalizing cocaine. The country is currently the world's biggest producer of the drug. During his inaugural speech in August, President Petro said it's time to accept that the war on drugs has been a complete failure. His administration is proposing legislation to decriminalize and regulate the use of cocaine and recreational cannabis. According to the Washington Post, Colombians are already allowed to carry small amounts of both drugs, but the Petro administration proposals go much further. Petro, who assumed the presidency on August 7th, is Colombia's first leftist president in history. His election coincides with a growing trend of left-wing leaders taking power in historically conservative parts of South America, including in fellow cocaine-producing nations Peru and Bolivia. Previous Colombian administrations had historically worked closely besides the U.S. government to combat illegal drug trafficking in the Americas. Suffice to say, the White House is supposedly not too pleased with the proposals. The United States and the Biden administration is not a supporter of decriminalization, Deputy National Security Advisor Jonathan Feiner told WAPO bluntly. I wonder why. Let me read some more. It says, suffice to say, I read that. Petro's tenure and his drug proposals come approximately 2 months after the Colombian's Truth Commission released its report analyzing the nearly 60 years of conflict between the country's government and the revolutionary group FARC prior to the 2016 peace agreement. In its report, the commission asserted that Colombia's war on drugs exacerbated domestic conflict and helped contribute to thousands of deaths. Per WAPO, Washington Post, the report calls on the Colombian government to pursue a policy of strict legal regulation of drugs. What do you think about that?
Shit. The U.S., they not for that because decriminalizing it, you know, they're
It's
not
fin-
for that because they make money. They keep
right.
their
It's
prisons
finna cut.
full.
It's finna cut into their pockets, big time,
Yeah.
big time, big time, bro. I had my shit pushed in big time, bro. Yeah, they don't no, they don't want that. The mob don't want that. The mafia don't want that. The human traffickers don't want that. The people who move guns don't want that. It's gonna hurt all of them.
Yeah.
You know, that's what they need to do. I mean, like the war on drugs. What a bunch of bullshit. How you gonna have a war on drugs anyways? You're not gonna win that off top. They never was planning on winning it. It's just bullshit. It was just like money, 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 money.
Yep. Yeah. But I think the cartels would still make money, bro, because we don't have that shit here in the States. So they gotta get it.
Well, maybe they'll
People
open
here
up.
have to get that shit. So they're not gonna decriminalize it here in the US. So it's still gonna be a risk for the cartel to send they dope over here, especially like through Florida and shit like that. Them boats and shit. So it's still gonna be a risk involved in it. So the cartel still gonna make money.
They're
You
probably
know,
gonna be way, way smaller and way less powerful,
so
like severely diminished,
yeah.
like like no longer a real factor, you know, on the world stage. They're big players on the world stage, you know.
Yeah.
We watch those movies where they be making deals with these people like the US government, and then so much stuff is going on. So but then that's the thing, that's how they hide what they do, is because
But you have
if it was legal, then everything would have to be out front. When it's illegal, you can sneak and slide and you know do what you want to do without it coming to light.
I mean, I think all them cartels. I mean, I don't know this to be true, but I think any type of organization like the cartels, I'm sure they got. I'm pretty sure they got state representatives and congressmen and Department of Homeland Security people in their back pocket, bro. The drugs that they catch is the shit that they are allowed to catch. The
Exactly.
real shit comes in. The real shit still gets in on the streets.
And it's because
There's
it's way
somebody
too
getting
much
paid
money.
billions of dollars a year underneath
But
the
if it was
table to
legal,
let.
that money would be way smaller, you know, and or it would have to be through a legitimate company, you know, and then they would have to post all everything. Who was the business partners? How much they made? They got to pay taxes, all of that.
Well, I mean, I think it would still be the same here. I think the big players in the game is still gonna make their money, bro, because like you say, that's Colombia decriminalizing it. That's not the United States, or that's not the Western world, UK and all of them. They still not legalizing that shit. So I think the big players in the game are still gonna. I don't think their pockets are gonna be truly hurting, honestly, because they're
Because
still gonna have to pay somebody to allow that dope to get in here. You know what I'm saying? There's still gonna be risk factors of that shit shipping from overseas on these big ass ships, and people shipping that shit through Florida, like the little cartel boats and shit like that. So it's still gonna be a risk. I think they still gonna make that bread. Now I think if they decriminalize drugs on the world stage, then yeah, I think a lot of people would be hurt. You probably
well,
have a fucking war. There
they
probably would
just
be a
said,
true war on drugs.
yeah,
Yeah,
that'll be a real war.
yeah.
Freaking but they just said, like, what did they say? 80%? Where is it at? I don't see it, but a large amount of the, like almost all of it, comes from Colombia. So if it's legal in Colombia and that's where most of it comes from, then that's going to affect the world stage on how, maybe they're going to have to buy it legally or some shit. I don't know. I'm just saying. I get what you're saying though. I agree, you know, but I think that the cartels they'd have to move different. They'd have to do a different way, and they have to do different shit. They'd have to become more legitimate. I think that's what would happen, you know?
Yeah,
And so then that's less death, because look how scary it is, the Texas Mexico border is. That's a scary place. And it's scary because there's so much drugs and guns and human trafficking coming through there.
that's true.
So that's what it is. So if you eliminate one of them, the drugs, the cocaine, that would be a big impact, a helpful move. And I think that we're here in the States, a lot of people are brainwashed on this whole thing. Like, it's like, okay, well, if they legalize cocaine, then everybody just gonna be doing cocaine. It's like, bro, do you do cocaine now? If they legalized it, would you start doing it? No. Well, why the hell you think everybody else gonna do that?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's
They
a
just
lot of
need to go
common,
and legalize that shit. Go and legalize weed too. You know,
all of that shit,
across the board, man.
all
Like
of that shit.
Texas, like these southern. Well, I can't say all southern states because I know. Well, I think Louisiana. I think you can have like a certain amount and not go to jail for it. But I would say majority of the southern states, that shit is still illegal. Like, bro, like I understand as a police officer, you gotta uphold the law, but it's like, nigga, I catch somebody, I pull somebody over and they got a sack of weed and a box of blunts. Most likely they're not distributing marijuana. That's for their personal use. Like I couldn't even arrest these people, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like I couldn't even like people go to people go to jail like good people, dog. Like people that don't have no criminal record. Like they're in college trying to build themselves or or they have a great career, but they recreationally use weed and they get caught with some weed and ruin their whole fucking career over a fucking dime sack of weed or I don't think they do dime sacks no more. 20 sack of weed. You know what I'm saying? And a couple of blunts. Or they got a couple of dubs in the fucking ashtray in their in their car and they saving their dubs. You know, when you get low, you go back to the dubs and roll you up a little joint, you know? Like their whole fucking career, their life is ruined for a fucking 20 sack of weed, bro, or some dudes. Like, really? Where does that fucking make sense, dog?
It's
How
crazy.
does that make sense? To ruin somebody's whole fucking career over that shit. Like, they're not high in the car. They literally just left the plug and going home to get fucked up. Like, and their whole career is ruined, you know. I don't
Yeah.
know. Or their whole
I,
life is ruined.
I think that if they legalize sex work, then that would help with the human trafficking part.
Yeah. I mean, I think legalization has a lot of benefits. It has a lot of everything has its I think everything, bro, no matter how we look at it, good or bad, has a benefit, you know. And it depends upon your perspective and how you take it, where it could benefit you in a positive way or a negative way. So, you know, they're never gonna stop it, dude. They're not gonna stop drugs. You know, they're not gonna stop sex. They're not gonna. I mean, people. We're human beings, dude. We have a free mind, and you know, people are gonna do whatever. There's people out here that are happily married people, but because they have some type of sexual fucking fetish or fantasy, they can't fulfill that shit with their wives, so they're gonna go to a fucking prostitute and get that shit done. Like, so you're never gonna stop prostitution. You might as well legalize it. Like, you
Yep.
know. I mean, I hate to sound stupid with what I'm saying. I'm just saying, I'm just for real, bro. You think about the dude that's probably sexually frustrated at home, like his wife, like, you know, she's not very sexually active. She doesn't like to have sex as much as he does. And this nigga got a fetish, I don't know, he like to get his dick sucked all the time or something like that. He's gonna go probably hit up a sex worker. Or he may hit up a side piece that's doing everything for him and he paying her, where at the end of the day it's still a form of prostitution.
It's still the same.
Yeah. So it's like you're never gonna stop it, bro. You got free minded people that have a brain that's so intelligent and they can imagine and become whatever with their thoughts. So you're never gonna stop it. You might as well legalize it.
Let me play this clip right here.
Talking about fascism. There's no other word to describe this. This is fascism.
Man, they got that music playing. I ain't gonna play it. Freaking it's the backlash to Biden's Let me read the comment. It says President Biden has taken a firm stance on the modern day threat of fascism. It's not just Trump, it's the entire philosophy that underpins the I'm going to say something. It's like semi-fascism. Biden made this key remark in a speech in Rockville, Maryland, while launching a push toward the midterm elections. While he stressed the violent nature of Trumpism and its threat to democracy, he was vague about the specifics of what he identified as half-baked American fascism. When he was later asked to clarify what he meant by fascism, he answered, "You know what I mean. Indeed, we do." What do you think?
Man, this dude is ridiculous. He's ridiculous, bro. And he's doing this shit on. Yeah. Why isn't he held to the same scrutiny as everybody else
What do you mean?
when it comes down to his speeches and the things that he say?
I don't know, man. It's funny. We were talking about that in the other show, how like the Democrats are treated differently. It's like there's, it is something to that. Let me read this. It says, these are captions. Comments underneath it. The party of I know you are, but what am I? Another one, it says, they are literally cray cray. It says, oh shit, projection is a GOP cornerstone. Another one, it says, only when their feelings are hurt. Another one says, now they have the nerve to have their feelings hurt. Wow, I always tell people shit ain't funny no more when it's coming back at you hot and heavy. Yeah, we didn't get to play the clip, so I don't want to play it. They love to put music in this stuff. It's kind of annoying.
They want to drive their point home with the sad music.
Yeah. That's how they copyright. That's how they protect their stuff.
Yeah. It's like all of the commercials about donating for homeless dogs and human beings. They always got that sad music playing.
Yeah. For here it say, keep up the good work. I'm trying. I'm trying. I'm gonna move on to some topics because what I say, the name of the show is Ethnonationalism. What do you think that means, Deuce? Ethnonationalism. What do you think that means? Oh, I lost him. I don't know what happened. Let me play a bit of this then.
We've seen this growing wave of ethno-nationalism worldwide in recent years, or a strong belief in nationality and ethnicity at the same time. You can check my other 1-minute videos for breakdowns of those concepts. All countries are multicultural to at least some extent. They include people of various ethnic identities, which are often the basis of community. And usually some of those ethnic communities enjoy more power and privilege than others. Ethno-nationalism is the belief that national borders should overlap with the imagined borders of an ethnic community, and that the ethnic community should have total control over its own political and economic affairs. This always entails at least some hostility to other ethnicities, especially minority ones. But this is almost always downplayed or denied by ethno-nationalist movements, who often claim to be not racist, but just patriotic. In North America, we saw this come to the forefront in 2016 when white supremacists marched on Charlottesville, Virginia, chanting a Nazi slogan, and the next day an anti-racist protester was deliberately hit by a vehicle and died. Trump fanned the flames throughout his entire term in office, and in January 21, the riot at the U.S. Capitol was very much motivated by ethno-nationalist sentiment to a large extent. There are other examples that span the globe since 2020. Some of them have been increasingly intertwined with conspiracy theories like COVID truthing. There's lots written on how the big social media platforms played a large role in that wave of ethno-nationalism over the past decade or so. And so many say that there are more recent steps to ban particular kinds of content and specific commentators, that was too little, too late. It's all very concerning, but there are also plenty of examples of communities pushing back against this wave and standing with their most vulnerable members.
Okay. I'm gonna talk about that some more because that was really quick. Let me see if there's any comments worth reading. Not really. I have another one on this so we can kind of nail this home.
5 million people. I'd like to say something about ethno-nationalism because it's one of the characteristics of this dark time. We're living, and maybe as a result of the fact that we're living in an age of unprecedented global migration with 65 million people on the move, there is now a renaissance of fantasies of homogeneity. More and more nations are coming to believe that they should live only with and among people like themselves.
Why is it a fantasy?
It's a fantasy.
It's history.
I'll tell you why it's a fantasy. Because there never is a community homogeneous enough to constitute what we mean by a nation. When European nationalism was first started in the late 18th and early 19th century, it began with an idea of a perfect fit, that there is a state and there is a nation, and the borders of the state should be the borders of the nation, and every nation would be incarnated by a state, and it would all be very neat. The problem was that it was never neat, and there developed this thing that became known in the early 20th century as the problem of minorities, because there were always people within the homogeneous community who were heterogeneous.
Yes,
until finally, there are people who came to two conclusions. One, they don't need to live among people like themselves to be themselves. They just need to be free. And two, there is no greater source of social conflict and state conflict than the fantasy of perfect homogeneity. And what I fail to understand...
Who has this fantasy? I've never come... No.
You do.
I have a concept I have a concept of a people in German Volk living in a country, in a nation state, in a territory, but I know it has never been totally homogeneous, like say kind of whatever marbles in a little bag that are totally all are green or all are blue. It's not a technical.
Then why are you worried about? Then why are you worried about the immigrants?
Because
what are they stealing from you?
No, they are not stealing anything from me, but I strongly believe that it is a people that has to be almost or mostly homogeneous.
Well, here we go. I mean,
for sure, not totally. Being totally homogeneous is a fantasy. This is stupid. This kind of a technical concept, like.
But excuse me. If you look, we have historical experience here.
Yeah.
If you look at the history of the treatment of minorities by nation states, it is true in theory that you can have a state in which you have a large homogeneous population and then a small minority or minorities. But if you look at the experience has shown us that people who are excited by the folk and who are excited by people like themselves generally wind up losing tolerance or worse with the minorities with whom they live. So why wouldn't it be easier and more just and more moral to simply rely upon a pluralist democracy in which everyone who lives in the country has the same rights and each community can flourish according to its power?
Okay, so I have one last question to you, Mr. Wieselt here. Why is Israel an exception from this?
First you bring up the Mossad, now you bring up Israel.
Yeah, because I'm interested in this, in your answer.
Israel is
every nation state must disappear.
The great problem that faces Israel right now. Oh, I don't think Germany should disappear. No. I'm all for nation states, but I think that the nation that lives within the state should be conceived heterogeneously, not homogeneously. I'm not for the I think the nation state is here to stay, and it's probably a good thing. The problem that Israel is facing is that Zionism, in some ways, imported the European idea of nationalism, this theory of the perfect fit. And then the Israelis discovered, the Jews of Israel discovered, not only that there, before 67, that there were Arabs living in their midst, and after 67, as a result of a war of self-defense, not of a war of conquest, that there were millions of Palestinians living, if not with them, then right alongside them. And the problem that you're facing is, I tell my Israeli friends, that's the problem that they're facing. And at some point, they will have the same choice that European countries will. They will either become multi-ethnic and pluralistic, or they will become fascist and homogeneous. Those are the only two possible solutions.
I don't like his defense. He's being real soft on Israel, but everyone is. But he's from his accent. I think he's Jewish, but he's really soft on them about. He said it was a war of. Let me be clear. It was a war of what do you say? Protection. It was a defense. Bullshit. Not many comments on this. It says, let's end fear and abide by civic principles. Long live civic nationalism and liberal democracy. Anyways, did you catch any of that? You there, Deuce?
Yeah.
Did you hear any of that? And the other one, kind of trying to explain what ethno-nationalism is.
I fell out, but I came back in. Like, what exactly is that? Like, this is the first time I ever heard of it, honestly.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a point of view, a way of thinking, you know. So like ethno-nationalism. Basically, it's like nationalism is just people having pride in their nation, you know, where they live or whatever, their state, their country or whatever, right? So, but ethno-nationalism adds another layer to that, saying that it's a certain group that are the rightful people and they are the state. You know what I'm saying? And whoever doesn't fit that is not. You get what I'm saying? Even if they live there. So it's like a certain particular culture is the actual nation, and they're the ones that actually have pride in the nation. Okay, so that's ethno-nationalism. So like a racialized nationalism, basically.
Yeah. Okay. That's that's crazy, man.
Yeah, well, so the point of the word is just to get people to understand the idea, because it's not like things like this are new, you know, but it's to help to understand the idea, you know. So, and it's funny that they brought up Israel because that's the perfect example of, you know, ethno-nationalism. And it's crazy also because they're not from there. Like they say, oh, in the Bible or whatever, Jericho and all of this, like, but y'all not from here. Y'all just came over here and said that this is y'all land and stuff. So that's the same thing that they did over here in the States. They just came over here, manifest destiny. You know, God told us this is for us. You know, hey, they said it was a wilderness. It ain't no. It's wild and you know, it's uninhabited.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. It was people here. It was people there in Israel, what they call Israel now. Like, anyways, that's a history that everyone needs to understand better. So, but ethno-nationalism, you know. So, what we're also talking about fascism, you know, because that's what it is. That's really what it is, and that's what it leads to. Because you have to become fascist to keep on defending your ethno-nationalism.
Yeah. Yeah. And I never like I don't understand. Like they say, like the all of these countries are supposed to protect you know, Israel or all of these places, and it's like, why?
Why? I don't know. I really don't. But see, what they say is, after because of World War II, Hitler is going in on the Jews. So it's like, okay, so the Jews need to have their own place where they can be safe, you know. So there goes the nation of Israel born out of that idea, So they use the Bible to choose the location and all of this stuff. So that's how that came about. So and that's their defense in what they're doing. And then that's the part where he said the war was a defensive war. But no, it wasn't. Y'all wasn't over there before. Y'all came over there and y'all, yes, the people was attacking you because you was like moving into their house uninvited. Like you come to somebody's house uninvited and sit on the couch and go in the refrigerator and make a sandwich. Don't even say hi, hello, how y'all doing? The people that live there, look at them like what you looking at. What's gonna happen if that happens in your house, dude?
Shit, you gonna be ready to kill somebody. Like, what the fuck you doing in my house? You gonna defend your shit?
It's the ultimate violation. You have to forget. They're taking your whole livelihood away. They're taking your life away. They're taking your house, your home.
Yeah. That shit crazy. That I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like all that shit was a plot.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. I have to be careful about this topic because that's a sensitive thing.
Question: How come all?
I want to talk about capitalism right quick. I don't want to bore you to death. How much time I got with you, Deuce?
Shit, what time? That was 2. I'll be out here for a little bit longer, bro. Yeah.
All right.
I'm
Let me
up
play.
About 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by curiosities that come to mind, like what's this? What's that? When you look at a map of the world, a few questions immediately come to mind, like what's this? What's that? And of course, what's the deal with all the blue stuff? I don't need to tell you that that's just how looking at a map goes. We've all been there. Humanity has been making maps for at least 5 years, and there's no denying that they are important to us. Whether it's getting us from our homes to the nearest coffee shop, or from there to another coffee shop, we use maps for a million different things. Sometimes, we use maps to answer important political questions, like in this clip, for example.
Should we consider military action against North Korea?
I believe so.
And where is North Korea?
But sometimes, we use maps not to answer questions like, where's that place I want to bomb for some reason, or how many Lebanons can fit inside Syria once you've already included Rhode Island, but rather to ask questions. That's the case for maps like this one, which prompts the question, how come all these countries are way poorer than all these? There are many answers to this question, but the one we'll focus on in this video is imperialism. While many different factors can explain in one way or another the inequality between countries, like geography, climate, natural resources, incidence of disease, and so on, it is imperialism, the need for capitalism to expand and subject more of the world to its control and logic, that can most convincingly explain why these differences have persisted in a world where tremendous material wealth has already been achieved. Unlike other explanations, using the framework of imperialism to understand the global divide between rich and poor allows us to see that it is not by accident or fate that some countries are kept poor. It's by choice. Somebody's choice. In other words, imperialism explains the global balance of power and poverty. But to understand this and the root of that power, we need to go back in time a little bit. Our modern world order and its rich-poor divide is undeniably rooted in the history of slavery and colonialism. While the history of the world is long and diverse, with each area and culture having its own record of the sequence of important events that defines it, a common historical juncture for many places is the white guys showing up and ruining it. That's the case for basically every modern country that's not here, and practically entire continents like Africa. which, despite its incredible diversity of cultures and characteristics, has been pretty uniformly subjected to the violence and damaging effects of colonialism and the transatlantic slave trade. Before the arrival of the Europeans, Africa was a continent with tens of thousands of cultures, some organized in ways that are easily recognizable to modern Western eyes with empire or state-like structures, and others that operated on completely different societal models without a good Western analogy. While the conventional narrative about Africa is one of a backwards continent that was quote-unquote civilized by European colonialism, a horrible and flat-out wrong justification for the atrocities I'll get to in a bit, Africa was actually developing side by side with much of the rest of the world for centuries. Historians note, for example, the advanced agricultural techniques like terracing, crop rotation, green manuring, mixed farming, and regulated swamp farming that made African topsoil rich and fertile for centuries, and the domestication of plants like millet, rice, and yams that was widespread on the continent. While this agriculture was not as productive as that in Europe and Asia, this was probably because land was abundant, and the organization of production around family units instead of feudal lords meant that self-sufficiency didn't require the same maximization that we saw in Europe, which ironically eventually led to the degradation of European soil, where Africa had achieved a more sustainable model. Then there were material goods. While Europe's Industrial Revolution had brought with it an abundance of goods, mass-produced in shiny new factories, especially textiles, African goods like leather, copper, iron, and cloth produced at the same time were praised for their craftsmanship, their durability, and their quality. This is not to say that because it was happening at a smaller scale that Africa did not experience abundance. Like Europe, Africa produced surplus and used this surplus to trade, with complex economies emerging between the three continents of Europe, Asia, and Africa prior to the advent of slavery and colonialism. What I'm trying to say here is that while there were qualitative differences between the countries that are now considered the Global North and the Global South, it's not always clear that these differences made the Global South worse off. Some of the first European explorers of the time say as much in their accounts of the continent, which I'm not going to read out loud because they're long. But I'll put an example on screen if you don't trust me that Europeans thought Africa was pretty cool and not, quote, underdeveloped like we might say today. Like everywhere else in the world, development in Africa was incredibly inconsistent. But even this cursory overview of African development before colonialism and slavery reveals that Africa, and more generally, non-Western geographies, were not predestined to occupy their role at the bottom of the global order like we might assume today. But this eventually changed. Back in Europe, things shifted, and for that, we can look to the Industrial Revolution and capitalism. The simultaneous advent of the Industrial Revolution and capitalism produced stuff, yes, but more importantly, it produced new needs and new structures of power. Specifically, capitalism produced the need to grow no matter what, and the power of the state to make that happen. As you know, capitalism produces things by committing people to wage labor. Instead of meeting your needs individually, as a community, or through trade, all of which happened under previous economic models, individual needs now had to be met by working for someone else, and getting a little money back for your labor. A few people owned things like factories, but the majority of people did not. And increasingly dispossessed of land and other means to self-determine, they traded their time and labor on the machines owned by others for money they would then spend on the products they had themselves made. That's all well and good for the capitalists who owned these machines and factories, but eventually they started running out of space. Domestic markets are not big enough to satisfy capitalists' incessant demand for growth. And since stagnation means death, European capitalists and the states they increasingly controlled started expanding beyond Europe in search of new ways to grow their businesses. While spreading out, they found America. Or, more accurately, first they found the Caribbean. With its agreeable climate great for growing crops and its supplies of gold and silver, the Americas were ripe for businesses to expand their productions and their profits. But they ran into a problem. There wasn't a big enough European labor force to exploit these new lands. And many of the people who lived there were either brutally murdered by the Europeans taking it over, or by the diseases they brought with them. So Europeans found another solution. Using their advantages in ships and weaponry and opening new trade relations, Europeans bought slaves. They made this new land profitable not by their own hands, but with the forced labor of slaves first captured in internal African conflicts and subsequently, in the most abject conditions imaginable, transported to the Americas. It's hard to convey in words how brutal this practice was, and I don't really want to use some of the most graphic images of the time. But needless to say that much of the wealth that Europe acquired by these means, and that today places it among the top half of the world, was achieved through the control and orchestration of this incredibly profitable and incredibly violent process. Estimates vary wildly about how much this benefited Europe in concrete terms, and conversely, how damaging the slave trade was to Africa. While we know that between 12.5 and 20 million people were ripped from the African continent between the 15th and 20th century, estimates about the kinds of reparations that would offset this loss, to use very callous economic terms, range from 100 to nearly $800 trillion. In no uncertain terms, however, the slave trade was brutal for Africa and its path to development, and beneficial, if only by comparison at the very least, to the countries that orchestrated it. The combined effects of basing an entire economy on losing people that would otherwise produce domestically, the violence of the European forces, and the sheer loss of brilliant minds to death or kidnapping has no modern equivalent. And this gives us a first piece of evidence for the North-South wealth gap. But eventually, the slave trade transformed. Deficits in European nations were no longer met by trade and settler colonies in the West. In other words, Europe needed something new to feed the capitalist growth imperative. Europe thus began converting many of its operations to a more direct control over land and resources. In short, colonialism. From gilded rooms thousands of miles away, European nations cut up the world amongst themselves, most notably during the Berlin Conference that launched the quote, "Scramble for Africa." The result was another map, but in more concrete terms, a new increase in violence. European companies and governments set up shop in their new colonies at the barrel of their improving weaponry, and began exploiting their resources, land, and labor forces even more brutally than they did their workers back home. Attracted by the high profits of the colonies, a product of the lack of established capital, the low price of land, the low wages of workers, and the cheapness of raw materials, capitalist countries had found a new solution to their domestic economies becoming overripe. Here again, we saw abject horrors I don't really want to show you. Mostly because YouTube will age restrict this video. Starvation, whippings, and mutilations were all popular methods of colonial control after the tremendous violence of conquest had already been exacted. The need to achieve growth and avoid capitalist collapse convinced Europeans to commit atrocities in the rest of the world on a scale that's hard to even comprehend. On the economic side of things, the costs of this period are once again hard to estimate, but not impossible. One economist, for example, has calculated that British colonialism cost India $45 trillion in today's currency between 1765 and 1938. But that's an estimate. A very educated one, but an estimate nonetheless. On the other side of the world, however, we can get at least one exact number. The cost of Haitian independence. Independence from French colonial rule after the Haitian Revolution cost the country 150 million francs, 5 times France's annual budget, and $21 billion in modern currency. That is a verifiable $21 billion head start for France / a $21 billion handicap for Haiti, which doesn't even count all the wealth extracted by the colonial process itself. If we focus on the European side of the equation, colonies were often very profitable. According to historian Walter Rodney, in the mid-1950s, British investments in South Africa were estimated at £860 million and yielded a stable profit of 15%, or £129 million every year. Similarly, De Beers Consolidated Mines made a profit that was both phenomenal and consistently high, between $26 million and $29 million throughout the 1950s. In other words, if slavery hadn't driven a big enough wedge between the rich and the poor, colonialism would. But colonialism would eventually end. That is, if you don't count the 17 official colonies still recognized by the UN, like Guam and French Polynesia, or the many more colonies that don't get put on official lists because they make ruling countries uncomfortable.
Like Puerto Rico.
Nonetheless, we have a lot fewer colonies today than we used to. The mid-20th century was a period of success for a number of anti-colonial revolutions. Many countries won their right to independence in these revolutions, and to most, this is where the story ends. It seems like the domination of colonial powers is over. Yeah, Europe screwed over the rest of the world for centuries, but then they stopped. So then, why is there still a gap between rich and poor? Can't all these countries just pull themselves up by their bootstraps? No. It's not just that after years of colonialism and slavery, the West had a head start and the global South had a handicap. When it was forced to relinquish the direct control of colonial rule, the West made sure it would never have to let go of the economic power it had built for centuries. In other words, the formal end of colonialism wasn't really the end after all. Like credits after a Marvel movie, there was more to come. Within a global capitalist economy, burgeoning independent economies were in a tough spot. After decades of being used and exploited, former colonies had very little wealth still in their control. But they needed to trade with the countries that had formerly exploited them for trillions and never paid reparations back. Trade is how most countries can secure basic needs. Enter the IMF, the World Bank, and structural adjustment programs. The IMF, World Bank, GATT, which became the WTO, and even some Western countries directly told newly independent countries that if they wanted to be included in the international economy, and perhaps even get a loan to get them started, they would have to follow a strict set of rules. They would have to drop any tariffs on foreign goods, privatize any national industry, open their country to foreign investment, and in every respect minimize the role of the state. In sum, they had to open the doors to unbridled Western capitalism, with pretty awful results. Not only were the loans really for the benefit of Western organizations, a loan has to be paid back with interest after all, the rest of the requirements often had and continue to have devastating effects. These measures ended up inviting many foreign-owned companies into former colonies. Without the ability to level the playing field on international competition with protectionist tariffs, or large-scale investments into national industries, infrastructure, and common goods, Global South countries were taken over by multinational industries. In the forced competition for shrinking export markets that the liberalization of trade produced, the Global South was coerced into turning to Western companies and their direct capture of national resources. Today, as an example, Canadian companies operate 75% of the world's mining companies, many of which are located in Africa and in Latin America. In effect, resources that are located in the Global South and extracted by the workers of the Global South were forcibly opened up to and ultimately produced profit for Canadian business interests, not for these exploited countries. This is why the Global South is still so poor, because it's not just Canada. In just about every country in the Global South, in almost every economic sector, unprocessed natural resources leave the country's borders, extracted by low-wage workers. They're then processed in the Global North into manufactured products, which in turn are sold back at a higher price to meet the Global South's basic needs. Resources and profits go out, expensive goods and foreign companies come in. Colonialism by the state has been largely recycled into colonialism by businesses and their friendly international institutions. One 27-year-old Cuban lawyer described how this process worked out in Cuba in the 1950s. A country that was no longer a colony of either Spain or the US, but still very much felt like it was. 85% of the small farmers in Cuba pay rent and live under the constant threat of being dispossessed from the land that they cultivate. More than half of the best cultivated land belongs to foreigners. In Oriente, the largest province, the lands of the United Fruit Company and West Indian Company join the north coast to the southern one. There are 200,000 peasant families who do not have a single acre of land to cultivate to provide food for their starving children. We export sugar to import candy. We export hides to import shoes. We export iron to import plows. In short, what the structural adjustment programs and the international capitalist economy offered the Global South was predatory inclusion. Exclusion from international trade could have been deadly to these countries impoverished by centuries of extraction, violence, and exploitation. So even a deal that sucked and pulled profits to the Global North was often sold as better than the alternative. While some of these programs have been accompanied by economic growth in the Global South, it is a much smaller growth than reflects the work done by poor countries, since most of the profit leaves for the North. And what growth does stay domestic mainly falls into the hands of the Global South's wealthy who willingly collaborate with foreign companies for a cut of the profit. Today, these practices continue in full swing. Colonialism never really went away. In summary, the poverty of the world today is not an accident. It's the product of centuries of subjugation to imperialist forces, at the root of which was the need for capitalism to expand beyond the borders of Europe and the means to inflict tremendous violence on the poor. That this system continues today is no accident. It's what makes the rich and powerful more money. As long as there is no economic challenger strong enough to end this system, capitalism will continue to rob the poor for the benefit of the wealthy. In this episode, we talk.
Man, that's a great video. He broke all that shit. Man, it took me some years of college to understand this stuff that he's fucking talking about here, like get my brain around and come to these conclusions. And he put this all together in this freaking 17-minute video. It's freaking awesome. This is, I'm telling you, this is 4 years of education right here in this 17-minute video.
Yeah.
You there, Deuce?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Yeah, did you hear
Yeah, he
any of
broke.
that stuff? What you think?
Yeah, man, he broke that down. And I mean, everything that happened then is a result of today, And if you ever wonder why the rich stay rich and the poor stay poor, listen to this video. It breaks it down.
Yeah, man, he broke it down on a global scale. Man, it's a bunch of shit. Let me read some comments underneath here. It says, I was born and raised in Sudan, Africa. We were not just producing agriculture and iron. We had several massive civilizations within our borders, and we have the largest number of pyramids of any country in the world. We were colonized by several empires like the Ottoman Turks, but none were as damaging in the long term as the British colonialism that lasted until early 1960s. The first revolution against the colonizers in the 1800s was successful only to be squashed by the queller of rebellion in Africa, Jen Kitchener, who went on to orchestrate the Boer Wars in South Africa after Sudan. Although we didn't have it as bad as other nations, the Congo, for example, had a genocide worse than the Holocaust due to the Belgians, not just Leopold. Every single African nation, and I have been to 5 different ones, have a story of how the colonialist powers continue to exploit the natural resources or for more nefarious causes, like in my country's case, the quelling or stopping of refugees from reaching the European shores. Cough. They pay warlords to capture refugees and tried to deny it, but the proof was outed. Also, just today, the economy in Zambia is in extreme crisis, and their only solution is loans from the IMF, while all their copper mines are exploited by Western companies and Chinese ones. Not the future Kenneth Kaunda dreamt of for them, for sure. Man, the IMF. Oh man. And I talked about that in another show. I really want people to understand that stuff better, but man, that's a whole part of it. That's a huge part. That's the leftover colonialism right there. They charge you these loans and then they tell you exactly how you want to, they want you to spend the money. And you're like, hey, I need to spend some money on education and infrastructure and stuff so that I can make my country better and grow for the future. They're like, you can spend money on that if you want, but you got to pay that loan back within a couple of years. So it'd be better if you put your money in something that's gonna make some money or something like that. Matter of fact, just let these private companies come in and do their thing, and then that'll help you. You'll get money from that
Yeah.
because your people gonna have jobs and all that. You know what I mean? You hear me? It's pimp talk.
Yeah.
Let me read some more. It says these countries aren't poor, these countries are rich. Only the people are poor. They're not underdeveloped, they're overexploited. Another comment, it says, I remember learning about colonialism and imperialism back in school. Although I knew about the atrocities done, it's really quite shocking to read and understand how severe the exploitation and genocides were for indigenous people. I found a few good books to read more on this topic. It's another example of how our education system downplays the effects of capitalism across the globe. Not only is it bad for political discourse, but we often teeter on genocide denial and downplaying the effects of colonial exploitation on other countries. If we want to improve our society and the world, knowing the history is important for healing and not repeat the past. Great video overall. Love the new style you're going. Let me read another comment. It says, sadly, throughout history, developing world has always ended up meaning transitioning to full-blown capitalism. Development and progress and innovation has pretty much meant the opposite of what it's portrayed to mean throughout history. Wow. These are very intelligent comments. Let me read another one. It says, this is a great brief intro to neocolonialism. Definitely not talked about enough in global North leftist spaces. In the US, especially, the focus is always about the comforts of European society democracy, but never about how they got it and actively maintain it. Actively maintain it, bro. Today, people. Today. Let me read some more. It says 21 billion for Haitian independence. We live in a society where a single individual could foot that bill and it wouldn't even noticeably impact their overall wealth. Mm.
Yeah.
Another comment, it says, this has to be one of your most powerful anti-capitalist videos, not only because of the obvious humanitarian and moral issues of profiting off of other people's suffering, but also just how blatantly these agreed atrocities from the past so obviously affect our modern world and how stubborn the global leadership is about changing that fact. And that's why they don't teach you no history. You don't never learn history, and they don't teach you geography either, because they have to teach you history. Geography and history go together. That you really can't teach one without teaching the other. You just can't. Freaking how the hell did the they teach you the states and the capitals and stuff like that, but how did the state end up with that name? Where did that name come from? And what part of the country is that state? What is the topography of it? What's the elevation? What about those rivers? Do those rivers go through other states? How is that connected? Like, people, they don't teach us that. We don't know that at all. Like, you probably know a lot of that, dudes, because you drive around the country. But how many people you think really understand? Like, I mean, I'm not really good. I try to study geography so I can learn better, but I suck at it because they didn't teach me it. But like, you have some examples, like, like, I don't know, you got to cross the Mississippi River, or like the where the time zones are, and like, where the hell is Montana?
Yeah. Yeah. Montana is West Coast. That's a part of the 11 western states.
Yeah, those northern central states are real blurry in my mind. Like, I don't know where they are. I could picture like Michigan. Um, I could pick, Illinois. But once you start like the Dakotas, I guess I could kind of picture them. But up in there, I don't know those states like at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Michigan is more like east. It's like Michigan is like east of Illinois, Indiana. You know, stuff like that. You got Ohio, Michigan, Ohio, Indiana. They're all kind of to that eastern side.
Yeah, so if I was driving from Houston to New York, what states would I drive through?
Shit. From Houston to New York, depending on the way you go, if you go like the way that I would go, you would go across, of course, Louisiana, on up towards Mississippi. You go through Mississippi, Alabama. You'll hit that corridor of Tennessee and Georgia right through there, and you'd run up through Tennessee over through Virginia. Then from Virginia, you go across through Maryland, then Pennsylvania, you'll hit a little bit of Jersey, and then New York. Yeah.
And what about the topographies of the areas? Like, which You're gonna cross some rivers and some mountain ranges. You cross the Mississippi, right?
Um, yeah, you're gonna go across a little bit of the Mississippi. That
What else do you
ten,
go through? Do you go through like what are those? There's a mountain range over there.
um, yeah, you're gonna hit. Tennessee has mountains. Virginia has mountains. Those are Appalachian Mountains.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the Appalachians.
yeah, yeah. Appalachian Mountains. You're gonna hit them, uh, which can be a little treacherous through there. Uh, but that's really about it. I mean, it's
After
not.
you come out of there, what do you say? Tennessee and once you come out of the Appalachian, you're gonna come down. And what is it like after that and driving up towards into Pennsylvania and whatever? It's like so it's more flat.
Uh, nah, you
It's
got
hilly.
hills. Yeah, you got hills all the way across. Through Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania. Yeah, it's hilly, bro. Like when I first started driving and I went up there, I seen that. I realized how hilly it was. I didn't know that, but yeah, it's pretty hilly, all through Tennessee, Virginia, Pennsylvania. Yeah, it's pretty. Even New York got a bunch of big hills, man. Mountainous range. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a trip to me because of, being from the South and it's so flat. California is like that too, and you have houses on the side of a damn hill or some shit.
Hmm.
Weirdest looking shit. The way the streets go and shit. Strange
Well,
to me.
yeah, this part of the South is flat, but you go San Antonio going west, it gets real hilly. Then you go West Texas, you got a bunch of mountain ranges out that way.
So wait, let's do this. Let's do it again. So if I'm driving from Houston to LA, how would that work?
I-10, I-10 west all the way.
And
Yeah.
what are you gonna drive through?
Uh, Once you come out of Texas, you're gonna go across New Mexico. You gonna run across New Mexico, and then you'll run in through Arizona, and then from Arizona you cross into California.
That sounds like such a shorter trip. That's a long ass way though, huh? Because some big ass
Yeah, yeah,
states.
yeah. Because from Houston to El Paso is 800 miles. So then once you cross out of El Paso, you go into what is that, Anthony, Texas, and then you hit the New Mexico line, and you got a few hundred miles across New Mexico, and that's all mountain range through there. Once you get past Las Cruces, and then you're gonna cross into Arizona, and you got the Texas canyons over there, the mountain range over there, and then you're gonna go through there. You go through Eloy, Arizona, Tucson, then you'll hit Phoenix and Tolleson, and you'll keep going and keep going, and then hit all the mountain range west of Phoenix, and you cross over to California, and it's like I said, it's real hilly. That's the Rocky Mountains over there.
Yeah, I remember riding with my family driving back and forth to California when I was a kid. And I remember those. What I was a little kid, so I don't remember a lot of it, but I remember those hills on the way to California. Who knows where I was at, but it was like super hilly, and I was like, "Wow, this is weird."
Hmm.
So what about to Canada? Have you driven to Canada? So what would it be like to drive from Houston to Canada?
That would depend on where you're going at in Canada,
Somewhere where this
because
Ottawa
if
is
you
kind of in the middle, right? The biggest city.
uh you know what, don't give me the line. I'd have to look at the map, but like I went from Houston to Manitoba, what was it called? Manitoba, Canada, and uh, I went up through uh, Louisiana, through Arkansas through Missouri, and then I hit a little part of Kansas and went up through Iowa, a little part of Nebraska, on into uh, God dog, what's that state? Uh, it went through South Dakota and North Dakota, all the way up to Canada.
Mm.
Yeah.
So it's North Dakota, then it's the Canada border
Mm-hmm.
out of North
Yep.
Dakota.
Yep. Right up Interstate 29.
And what does it look like going through there? It's a bunch of lakes and shit, right? Like,
Uh, Depends on where you at. The part I traveled through, it wasn't really a lot of lakes. It was just kind of like open land, foothills, kind of looked flat, you know. And that part of Canada was the same way too, pretty flat, open fields, you know, a couple of little lakes here and there, but that was really about it. Now, when you get into like the Yukon territories, like going towards British Columbia, that's like the western side of Canada. That's real hilly, treacherous.
yeah, I don't know that shit at all. So I just had a class right now. I want to read some more comments. It says, as someone from a global South country in Asia, I feel that we have a sense of camaraderie with people in same situation as us. A history of oppression and exploitation is not something we're proud to have in our history books, but we can't avoid it since it's a huge part of our history. Like, how can you edit that shit out? Then it present day makes no damn sense. And that's why we got so many people walking around confused as hell. Cause like the world that they live in don't really make sense. Cause they're looking at it through this freaking point of view that they've been given. That's not really real. That's not really what happened.
Hmm. They gotta continue to try to hide the truth and whitewash it.
Yeah, man. I ain't gonna lie, I'm kind of tired. I worked all day today.
I feel you.
I'm starting to feel it.
Yeah, I feel you. Shit, I gotta get up for 8 o'clock.
Yeah, I work tomorrow. I gotta do some stuff before I go to work. I think I had something, but I don't remember what it was. I have another video, but I don't know if I want to go there right now. I don't want to lose y'all. Yeah, man. So, capitalism, ethno-nationalism. Is this that same video?
In this item list are empty folders with classified banners. And by the way, that's not to imply most of them were empty, because there are a whole host of listed and counted government documents with various classified listings here. But any idea of the significance of...
I'm so sick of that story. I'm tired of hearing about it. Beating a dead horse. Did you see this? T.I.'s son getting in trouble?
Going to prison. If you goddamn keep this shit up, that prison. Ain't no way around it. Ain't nothing I'm gonna be able to do about it. Can't nobody stop it but him. You know what I mean? I've already had the conversation. I've already made my peace with it. Because I know that energy. I was that energy. I know exactly how it's gonna turn out. You can.
Can I take a selfie with you?
No, go ahead.
Please.
I'm in the middle of something. I'm in the middle of something, but go ahead. This is more important. Go ahead. Come on.
Thank you.
All right, take it easy. Yeah. So I now already had that conversation with him, man. King's a good kid, chasing after the wrong, and you know, I trust in God to deal with it the way that He see fit. You know what I mean? It ain't really aside. You know, he done got all the whoopings, he done got the punishment, he done did it, he done, did everything as a child you could do to him. So now he gonna have to go through it. You're gonna have to go through it and get through it. And ain't nothing me and mama or nobody else gonna be able to say about it, man. But I'ma love him all the way through whatever it is he going through. You know what I mean? Uh, and shit, man, he gonna learn his lessons. Life gonna, ain't no, you know what I mean? Life is gonna teach him all the lessons that he need to know. And that's the most that we could do. That's the best we can ask for. You know what I mean, I know who he is at his core. You know what I'm saying? This shit that he trying to, he trying to convince himself of things, as we all do as young men and even young women growing up, try to convince ourselves that we are certain things. And in that journey, we find out exactly who the we really is. You know what I'm saying? And it happens when we least expect it, and our lessons come from where we didn't know they were coming from. And it just ain't shit to do. Ain't shit to do, man. Time is gonna be his teacher. You know what I mean? So with that being said, I hope everybody have a peaceful, appreciate that, bro. A peaceful and productive day. I know my son. Think I ain't spoke to my son. Think I ain't told my son, his mama, and his grandmama, his ass going to prison.
Yeah, so the caption says T.I. speaks on his son Tariq St. Patrick, King Harris, recent run-in with the law. So, I don't really have comments on this. You there, Deuce?
But trying to be a thug, he ain't.
Yeah, man. What everyone is saying is like, he pretty much got it made. He chilling. He want to just wild out. A lot of us, a lot of people, a lot of other children or kids his age wouldn't mind being in the position he's in. But then too, the outside looking in, who the fuck knows? Again, I don't really have no comments, but it was it went viral, so I don't really care that much.
Yeah.
He these spoiled rich kids.
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely was spoiled and grew up rich.
Just don't know how to act.
Well, the thing about that is he grew up rich, grew up like that, and now he's at that age where people testing him because it's like, bro, you didn't grow up like your daddy. You didn't grow up in the hood. You soft.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I'm probably gonna wrap it. So I'm tired. I'm trying to do a show tomorrow, but I ain't gonna guarantee it.
I feel you. Shit, you and I both, bro. Shit, I came home and took a nap, crashed that, but shit, I'm still sleepy. I've been up since Thursday at 3 in the evening.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Sunday now.
It's Saturday, nigga.
Oh yeah, Saturday. My bad. Saturday now.
Yeah.
I'm I'm in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta get my butt up at 8. So, shit. Yeah, I feel you. It's, it's about that time for my ass too, bro.
All right, man. I'm gonna hang out for a little while longer, but get you some rest, man.
All right, bro. We'll catch up. Shit. Let me know if you come on tomorrow, man. I try to be in join in.
All right, man. I'll send you know I'm sending you text.
Okay. All right,
Peace
bro.
and
Yeah.
peace and love,
Peace
man.
and
Get you
love.
some rest.
All right. Peace and love, bro.
All right.
All right.
That I will live if I don't get that thing. So we're holding this one in our heart, the thing.
That stuff is annoying. It says the CDC discovers 13 additional cases of recent E. coli outbreak linked back to Wendy's. Now total of sickened. What? Now total of people sickened now close to 100. Why was that written so badly? CDC currently investigating fast moving E. coli outbreak in Ohio and Michigan that has sickened close to 30 people. Yeah, I heard people talking about that. It's like that's the thing, people love to have something to be scared of or whatever. We're gonna have a E. coli pandemic. It says as inflation soared, American corporations just raked up their biggest profit margins since 1950. Housing is so expensive in California that a school district is asking students' families to let teachers move in with them. Damn. Confirmation from the European Space Agency that more than a third of Pakistan is currently submerged. More than 33 million, 1 in 7 Pakistanis, have been affected by the flooding. Ohio police fatally shoot unarmed black man in bed during failed arrest attempt, video shows. Yeah, I saw that shit. I don't want to cover that. It says how ranked choice voting works. Yeah, people probably don't understand it, so let's read it. It says if no candidate gets more than 50% of the vote, the count goes into an instant runoff. In this scenario, the candidate with the least amount of votes for first choice is eliminated. The voter who had that candidate as their first choice will then have their vote count for the candidate they marked as their second choice. The process continues until one candidate gets more than 50% of the votes. So that's how that works. It says remains of dozens of indigenous ancestors' sacred objects found on UND's campus, university announces. While the total is not known, around 200 boxes of sacred objects have been located, and the remains of around 70 ancestors have also been located so far. This is Yang Lowry, but which policies? What are they talking about? Yang. This is one of the more interesting communication challenges for something like Forward. We're so accustomed to something falling on a left-right political spectrum. You frame it as a centrist party, which does describe a lot of people that are drawn to Forward. But we're trying to set up a system with the majority will of the American people actually get reflected in policy. Laurie says, just to be clear, you're not defining the policy center. You're not setting out any policies as you're setting this party up. There isn't a tax proposal or a health care proposal that captures the will of the people, unprecedented by the two parties. What does Forward stand for? Yang. We stand for what people want to see in their own lives, in their family lives, in their own community. The principles that we are championing are free people, thriving communities, and a vibrant democracy. And it's true that people in Mississippi will pursue those things in a different way than people in California, and we think that's great. That's dribble. What is this? Is mob rule that endangers individual rights? I don't know what the point of that is. Okay, whatever. They showed more of that clip of Trey, and in the video, it looks like they're blotting it out on here, but the videos floating around everywhere. But in that video, you could see that it was the four of them kind of beating on Zero. So it kind of makes it look like what Trey was saying in his apology wasn't really true, or he was embellishing a bit, at the very least. There's that guy. He's pretty funny. Nah, I ain't gonna go to that. I think I'm just gonna wrap it. My eyes are burning. I can't even see straight now.
Come on, look, guys. You keep trying to make that case. I don't consider any Trump supporter to be a threat to the country. I do think anyone who calls for the use of violence fails to condemn violence when it's used. Refuses to acknowledge when an election has been won. Insists upon changing the way in which the rules count votes. That is a threat to democracy. Democracy. Everything we stand for rests on the platform of democracy. When people voted for Donald Trump and support him now, they weren't voting for attacking the Capitol. They weren't voting for overruling an election. They were voting for a philosophy he put forward. So I am not talking about anything other than it is inappropriate, and it's not only happening here, but other parts of the world, where there's a failure to recognize and condemn violence whenever it's used for political purposes, failure to condemn the attempt to manipulate electoral outcomes, failure to acknowledge when elections were won or lost.
President, do you consider all Trump supporters to be a threat to the country?
They're gonna be on him on that. But it's probably all good. We're going into an election cycle, so hey, here we go. It says breaking. Department of Veteran Affairs will provide abortion services for the first time in history, even in states that have outlawed the procedure. That's interesting. How would that work out? And that's why I be saying what this is leading to is this states versus states. I hope y'all see it. This keeps going. States versus states. What does that lead to? And the only thing that could beat the United States is the United States. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen at some point. Anyways, I'm going to wrap it, y'all. I'm tired. Thank y'all for joining. Thank y'all for listening. Thank y'all for being here. We'll be back. I'm going to try to come on tomorrow. I have some stuff that I didn't cover that I'd like to cover. So I'm going to try to. I think if I don't come on, I'm going to do a special show on Sunday or something like that. Random time, random date or some shit. But I think I'm going to come on tomorrow. I'm going to try to. Anyways, peace and love. Thank y'all for joining. Thank y'all for listening.